Good evening, Fernwood. It is your promiscuous younger sibling, Neil, and it's time for us to sully our bad reputations with another episode of Mary Hartman. We are watching episode 310 from June 10th, 1977. Yesterday, we had some bangers, so let's take a look back. We started at the Capri Lounge with Tom and Charlie doing a preliminary wrestling match. As the whole neighborhood looks on, George tries to get a tip from Martha, but her premonitions have nothing to do with Mac. Harold Clemens from the Fernwood Courier shows up, and he's most interested in interviewing Bug Massacre Slattery, but he makes sure to greet the Jeters. George makes sure to protein load Mac by offering him a glass of 4 raw eggs as Clemens makes his way up to the bar. Dennis Foley shows up to watch, and Mary's first response is, "Please go away." Tom pins Charlie for the preliminary match, and George announces him the winner of the person to have a chance at the $500 for going up against Bug Massacre Slattery. Tom pauses things and says that he wants to take a match against Dennis Foley, who doesn't seem interested in fighting Tom, and Mary is seeing her whole life crumble before her. Dennis acquiesces to a match with Tom, but doesn't fight back at all, and he is pinned within seconds. Tom asks Dennis why he didn't fight back, and Dennis says, "You needed this win more than I did." Then George starts the match between Mac and Tom has completely been defeated before the match begins. He falls to the ground and gets pinned, and as Mary comes to comfort him, he stands up and walks away. Later in the Hartman bedroom, Tom makes a call to the Fernwood PD to reach out to Dennis Foley, but he is not there. Merle and Wanda show up, taking a break from their campaigning to have a friendly visit, and the Jeters are clear that this is a deep depression that Tom has fallen into and are of differing minds about how they should approach it. Wanda sits to comfort Tom while Merle reminds him that the Jeter marriage has had plenty of infidelity within it and they are standing strong together. However, this does not lift Tom out of his depression at all, so Merle suggests having a good night's sleep, and Tom seems to sink deeper and deeper into the depths of his depression. Then we head over to Howie's apartment, where a frantic Mary gets ready with Kathy, but she's also trying to look for a way out of it. Kathy tells Mary that she's already come this far and she might as well go all the way, and she leaves Mary to herself, which means that Mary is setting down to write a note breaking the date. But writing the note and taping it up to the door gives Dennis enough time to arrive, and the couple re-enter the apartment as Dennis quiets Mary's mind down. And the episode ends with Mary and Dennis sharing a passionate kiss. Everyone, I'm still feeling the impact of yesterday's episode, so I guess I better roll with these punches.
Mary Hartman! Mary Hartman!
Tarnation. Why does everybody pick the funniest times to come to our door?
Hey, Charlie.
Hi.
How you doing?
Hi, Tom.
I'm glad you're up. I was afraid you might have hit the sack already, you know?
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, Tom, because as a matter of fact, Loretta...
I've missed you an awful lot lately, Charlie, you know? I mean, really have.
What's on your mind, Tom?
Well, I just thought maybe we were, due for a little visit, you know.
I think you're right. You know, I don't hardly see you, seems like, anymore. It might be a better idea, though, if we could maybe, I don't know, set aside a whole day, arrange some kind of a visit.
Oh, Tom, hi, Hannah.
Hi.
What are you doing here so late?
Hi, honey. Well, I just, I've missed you guys lately, you know.
Isn't that sweet of you to come over here and want to fill up the vacant space left by little Johnny Doe? And thank you so much, and you'll just have to come and do it again sometime.
Yeah, I will.
Appreciate it.
I will. Except probably Mary won't be able to come. I mean, she's been awful busy lately.
Yeah, well, you know, see, I never knew anybody who worked harder than Mary Hartman does.
Gosh, no.
Just taking care of her family and you and
Yeah.
Heather. She just keeps so busy. She's more than even my friend Loretta here.
Yeah. Well, she hasn't been around the
Well-
house too much lately.
She's had she's had all kinds of errands to do outside of the house, like shopping and carpet.
Yeah, well, she hasn't been shopping either.
You sure, Tom? I mean, Mary is a champion shopper, you know.
Yeah, listen, you two. I mean, this is just out of curiosity. I mean, if you two had to, say, pick between me and Mary as your friend, which one would you pick?
Oh, Tom, that is the silliest thing I ever heard of.
No,
Yes,
it's
it
not.
is. Oh, of course it is, darling. I mean, we love both of you, huh? Tom and Mary.
Well, what if it weren't Tom and Mary anymore? What if something happened? What if, say, we split up? Which one would you choose?
Listen to me, Tom Hartman. That is not going to happen. You just take that notion right out of your head, because it's not going to happen. That's all.
Tom, it ain't fair. It ain't fair to ask us that. You know, because friends, they're not supposed to choose, take sides, you know.
And anyway, I mean, for instance, like you couldn't choose between Charlie and me.
Well, that's you guys are different. I mean, you've always been a couple. I mean, you haven't had to deal with what we've had to deal with. I mean, like infidelity and alcoholism and nervous breakdowns and first-degree murder raps.
Well, Tom, we've had our ups and downs, though, you know. But see, the one thing that we always remember, no matter what happens, is that we've got us the best stick-together glue in the whole wide world. We got our love to keep us together.
And so have you and Mary. And if you just forget all the rest of that stuff, you'll be fine.
Mary, we were meant for each other. I want you to give in to your feelings. I want you to say to me that you love me.
The entire right side of my body is fast asleep.
Mary,
What?
I have never loved anyone the way I love you.
And I've never loved anyone but Tom.
You don't love Tom.
No.
You love the idea of Tom, but not him.
I'm sorry. I just can't have an affair with you. I'm sorry. I can't.
Is that what you think we're doing tonight? Having an affair?
Isn't there?
Mary, tonight is the night. But not for what you thought. Mary. Mary. Will you marry me?
What?
I'm asking you to marry me.
Oh, you're proposing?
That's right. Well,
I mean, you want me to be your wife, not just your mistress? A diamond. A real diamond. For me? Oh, God.
It's for the day you marry me.
Could I just take this home to my mother and show it to her? I'll bring it right back. I mean, I really would.
Honey, we certainly have our work cut out for us tonight. You and Mother Adeline get the VFW meeting, and Mickey and I will cover the local Federation of Gas Station attendants. You know, what with the energy crisis and all, we'll probably get a lot of mileage there. What is it, honey? What's the matter?
Oh, nothing.
Oh. Well, why don't you just take a look at these identical speeches that Buzz and Angela wrote for us.
Oh, boy, Buzz and Angela, Miss Adeline, Mickey Mo. You know, it's beginning to sound like the Mouseketeer Club around here. Gosh, Wanda, whatever happened to just you and me and our little campaign we had going?
Well, Merle, Buzz and Angela are very astute politicians. I mean, let's face it, they write all our speeches for us, and they arrange our meetings.
What about Miss Adeline and Mickey Mo? What have they done for us except insult us, slop down our food?
Oh, they're local color, Merle. Let's face it, the press eats them up.
Well, I've had a belly full of both of them.
Merle, it's not like you to bite the hand that's feeding you, however greasy said hand may be.
No, it isn't, Wanda, but I don't care anymore. I don't know, I just can't stand either one of them. I'm getting tired of making speeches to old soldiers and old ladies and homosexuals. And I'm tired of Mickey Mo stealing my clothes now. He's stealing our food. He started squiring you around town.
Well, Merle, what's wrong with your brother other than his outrageous name and his beer belly? Why do you hate him?
Wanda, let me count the ways.
Look here. Fish was fair snapping at the bait today.
We'd have caught that 3-foot catfish if you hadn't started a hooting and howling at that little old bitty 2-foot one.
Shush. Looky here, Wandy, Merle, Mickey Mo's caught us our supper.
We're gonna have one hell of a fish fry tonight, brother.
What happened to you, Brain Trust? You forget we had a little work to do here today? You call that miserable string of fish supper?
Just about as much as you'd call a slimy, cut-rate politician a presidential candidate.
Well, now that we've gotten that all out of our systems, why don't we sit down to a hearty meal? Ooh, no. Why don't you leave those fish outside, Mickey, while Mother Adeline and I go in the bedroom and select our wardrobe for this evening. Now, I have a lovely polyester that I think will amuse you.
Oh, I'm sorry, honey. Where did it itch?
Mickey Mo, I want you out of my life. Soon.
Now, Merle, can't you let bygones be bygones? You gonna let a little old misunderstanding that happened 3 years ago stand in our way?
Wait a minute. What is this? Misunderstanding? Is that what you call it? You know what I call it? I call it wife stealing. That's what I call it. And that's the most miserable, behind-the-back thing one man can do to another, especially when it's his brother.
Now, Merle, we've been all over this before. Linda Sue was not your wife. She was your fiancée till she up and left you, at which point in time she come on to me.
Yeah. Like every other woman in the county.
Well, hell, I can't help it if the ladies find me suave.
Oh.
Debonair.
Wanda?
Well, most of them only wanted my pickup anyhow. If I had my druthers, I'd pick old Sadie, my mule over woman, any day. Powerful left kick that gal had.
Honey, right off the top of your head, which of these do you prefer, this adorable blue denim-like or the butter churn motif polyester?
Well, if you ask me, I'd say they both look as drab as gunny sacks.
Gunny sacks? you know, you're right. That happens to be very astute.
Wanda! It's not funny.
Sorry.
And you Mickey Mo, you get those fish out of here.
All right. All right. We'll fry them up tomorrow night. Your sense of humor, Merle, is flatter than a cold fish.
Merle Jeter, I just don't know what's gotten into you lately. I mean, why are you so unreasonable about that quaint little man? True, he is a little vulgar and a bit of a slob.
Snob?
Slob. But he's an antique, Merle. He's a collector's item, a rare specimen of the backwoods.
Wait a minute here, Wanda. What is going on here? Isn't anybody on my side of this house anymore? I mean, what's in here? I mean, if this is where it's going to be, if this is a sign of the times, then I'm going to quit. Cold turkey right now. I'm saying Alvita's into the White House.
Listen, Tom, I'm really sorry I came home so late last night.
I didn't even know you were out late.
You didn't?
Mm-mm.
Didn't even wonder where I was?
Well, I figured you were at Loretta's or over at your folks.
Tom,
Hmm?
I was with Dennis Foley last night. I was with Dennis Foley last night.
That's very funny.
Tom, I think it's very crucial that we discuss this.
Mary, look, I know you're asking me to give you consideration for your feelings, trying to hurt mine to do that, but it's not working, honey. It's not going to help at all. Just give me my breakfast, okay? Hmm?
Tom, don't you believe me?
Honey, I know you. I know you'd never do something like that.
I didn't do something like that. It's much more complicated than that. He wants much more than that.
I mean, you really were with him?
Yeah.
In the sack?
No. No, that's part of my point. It has nothing to do with that anymore.
But he tried.
He asked me to marry him.
To marry him? And you believed him? Huh? Mary, wait a minute. Where's your head? Now, where's your sense of reality? I mean, do you know what you're doing? You're living in some kind of romantic daydream.
He told me he loved me, and he asked me to marry him, Tom. I don't know what to do. Tom, aren't you going to talk to me? I mean, please, just tell me that you love me. Tell me that you hate me.
Mary, you're dreaming. You're dreaming. I mean, you're imagining that you're out with Foley last night, and you're telling me lies. Just to add to the excitement of your everyday humdrum, rub-a-dub life, your household life. You're acting out some kind of soap opera fantasy just to prove that you're desirable to other men. Now, I know that you weren't with Foley last night. I know that. So I'm not going to hang around here and listen to your fantasies, okay? Huh? I got to go to work. Your sink's overflowing.
I'm leaving, but not the way you think.
What do you mean?
Look, Mary, I want you to come away with me as my wife. I brought you flowers, white daisies, for your wedding day.
My wedding day? But Dennis,
Mary, last night was so beautiful. It was so hard to believe.
Well, it was hard for Tom to believe, too.
Oh, it was good that you told Tom. Mary, listen. Now, see, it's all been building up to this. I mean, what's happening between us is not some secret, sleazy affair. I mean, this is the real thing. It's true love. And I have faith in that love.
So then my sink isn't overflowing.
No, it isn't, Mary. And to prove that I have faith, I'm going to leave Fernwood first, so that you can make the decision, without my influence.
Oh, Dennis, I don't want you to leave. I don't want you to leave. Please just keep it as it is. Please, please don't go.
Mary,
Please.
I'm asking you to leave everything that you know, to come with me. I'm asking you to make a decision about how much you and I mean to one another. Because from the beginning, we've meant everything to one another. I want you to meet me 1 week from today at Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls? I better take a Jason.
There's a tour boat. It's the Maid of the Mist. It ties up at the dock. A week from today, about the time these flowers begin to wilt, I'll be there on the bow of the 2 o'clock tour boat. I'll be wearing a white carnation.
It's the bow, the front, or the back?
Mary, it'll be our wedding day.
Dennis, it can't be. I mean, I'm married. I'm not even divorced, and I don't know why that never even seems to make a dent with you.
Mary, look, just stick with me, and we'll weather through the divorce, through the marriage. Come on, Mary, I just want to know. I want to know that you'll be there.
Dennis, I don't want you to go away. I really don't want you to go away. Please don't go away. Please stay in this town. Please, we'll see each other all the time, I swear. All the time.
Mary, don't disappoint me. Don't disappoint yourself.
Dennis, instead of Niagara Falls, which I hear is very damp, why don't you just move to another hotel?
I have to go. Meet me there, please.
Cleveland, okay?
Niagara Falls. Goodbye, Mary.
Dennis. Drive carefully.
Goodbye, Mary. I'll be waiting for you.
This marriage just won't seem the same without him.
This episode seems to focus a bit on Tom's feelings and, of course, Mary's feelings at the end. But we start with Tom visiting Charlie and Loretta in the middle of the night. And at first, Charlie's ready to send him away, but it's clear that Tom is feeling some loneliness. Tom had given up yesterday during the fight against Mac, and it seems here that he's not sure what to do with his life. Loretta comes out and she also tries to usher Tom away, and Tom brings up that Mary probably won't be back to visit them, and this seems to quiet the Haggers a bit. Then Tom takes this even further to ask if they had to choose, would they choose Mary's friendship or Tom's? He's questioning divorce at this point. Loretta tries to be reassuring and says that their love is what holds their marriage together. I'm not sure that that's enough for Tom in this case. We then cut over to Mary and Dennis at the end of their date. Mary seems disconnected. She talks about the left side of her body feeling completely asleep. And I wonder if that's the split that she's feeling, that difference between the feeling she has for Tom and the feeling she has for Dennis. But Dennis is not there to sleep with Mary. At least that's what we all thought, that they were going to sleep together again. But now Dennis is heightening the relationship in a different way by proposing. And Mary is definitely not out of the relationship with Tom in this case, so it's a pretty major ask. Dennis's response is that he is willing to weather whatever comes with Mary, which seems really romantic. Mary is, of course, surprised at the ring, and we're left with them kissing even more. Then we cut over to the Jeters, where Merle is feeling a little bit crowded in the campaign. He's even bothered by Buzz and Amanda, though he's mainly concerned that Adeline and Mickey Mo are still going to be part of his life. He really wants them out because Adeline insults him at every turn, and he's holding on to some hatred for Mickey, which we talk about in a moment. That's when Adeline and Mickey Mo come in with their fish after their fishing trip. You know, they've been there for a few days. Mickey Mo sits down and seems to think that it's silly that Merle is holding on to these feelings after what Mickey Mo calls a misunderstanding. And I'm a little bit unclear about the timeline with regard to Merle's previous relationship, because 3 years ago he was still a single father to Jimmy Joe Jeter. I'm not sure what relationship we're talking about. I doubt it was Jimmy Joe Jeter's mother, because she's certainly out of the picture by the time we meet Jimmy Joe last year. So I'm not sure who was getting married to Merle or who was engaged to Merle, but some of it is Mickey Mo sort of taking the steam out of Merle's relationship, I suppose. Some of it is also just a general jealousy that he has always felt to his brother. At least that's the way it was described when Mickey Mo was introduced. Wanda comes out looking for some advice for some clothes, and Mickey Mo gets her to laugh, and that really seems to seal the deal on Mickey Mo. Merle wants him out, and Wanda doesn't know why. And then we have two major beats in the next scene, which start with Tom, who last we saw earlier this episode was in depression and questioning divorce, and Mary coming clean with him about what happened last night. And I'm pretty confused about Tom's reaction, because it was clear to me that he understood what was going on, that he knew that Mary was seeing Dennis. Everyone told him that and confirmed that was happening yesterday. And when he showed up at the Haggers at the start of this episode, it's clear to me he's mourning something. So here, the next morning, we see him in complete denial of what has happened. And when Mary tells Tom that Dennis has asked her to marry him, he chalks it up to childish imagination, daydreams. Some of that could be the denial that I mentioned a moment ago, but some of it is also that Tom completely has given up on this relationship. He wanted to fight Dennis, and Dennis didn't need to fight him. At least that's how it seemed to feel yesterday. And Tom leaves for work without addressing these things that Mary finds so important. Tom has lost this fight. And right on the heels of Tom leaving, Dennis shows up with flowers in hand and a suitcase, and Mary realizes that Dennis is leaving, and that really tears at her. The feeling that she feels for Dennis is really powerful, and she's also really torn that Tom didn't fight for their relationship. Dennis is doing perhaps a noble move by putting it all in Mary's court and saying that Mary has to make this decision. When he brought up Niagara Falls and also The Maid of the Mist, it reminded me of an entirely different show. So I'm going to take a mild tangent here and mention a show that I really loved that I think very few people have ever seen, called Wonder Falls, that also takes place in Niagara Falls and mentions The Maid of the Mist, at least in the pilot. So, boom, you can watch a little bit of a trailer for that show. If you end up watching that series, I would love to talk to you about it. Let's get back to Dennis and Mary, though. Dennis is making a very clear move to take himself off of the board and put it in Mary's hands. Mary has to make the decision to leave and meet him next Friday when the flowers start to wilt. And I don't know what Mary's going to do. And as we approach the end of this T-4 weeks to the end of Mary Hartman, it's time for us to address the question of the week, which was, who were your favorite sympathetic side characters? And I've got a number today. I probably should have done more over the week, but there's just too many. So I want to introduce them roughly in order of appearance. We've already talked a bit about Patty, and she is, for the most part, a victim. She appears in the first episode of season 2, and we see her take an arc. And I feel like she doesn't become heroic until her very last episode. She's got a really harrowing arc, and it's worth looking into. If you haven't watched those episodes, I guess you're at the end of the series, so go back and watch them. But she's got a really powerful story, and I, again, will not tell you how that ends, but if you want to see it begin, you go to the first episode of season 2. The next character I'd like to bring up is Annie Wiley, who was first brought into the series also in season 2 and was introduced as the subject of jealousy in the Tom and Mary relationship as Mary was released from the mental hospital. There were hints while Mary was in hospital that Tom was seeing a friend that he met in recovery, but they went out and introduced Annie Wiley as an older woman who had lots of sexual experience, and she really brought a dynamic to this series that didn't exist. She was just really straightforward about her sexuality in a way that I think shocked a few people, and eventually she was written off as the storyline seemed to need different things. But she was a really refreshing character in this series, had a really clear point of view that could contrast with everyone else's. So there's Annie Wiley. And the third character that I'm going to bring up today, if you've been watching recently, you may remember Howie Freeze, the radio DJ and investigative reporter who took influence from Edward R. Murrow. He, to me, during the Glorious Guardians of Good storyline, was one of the few characters that seemed to not only know what was going on, but wanted to work in opposition to the GGG, and that made him really heroic to me. Obviously, his storyline had some complications in it. If you want to know those stories, well, I'll put up an episode. But it's now time for me to talk about my personal hero in this series of the sympathetic side characters, and that is a character with a complex history in this show, Maid Olinsky, who began as the object of jealousy in Tom and Mary's relationship in season 1, and eventually came to be someone who was also quite heroic. She started as a woman that Mary was jealous of and then had an affair with Tom, an ongoing affair actually, for at least a couple of weeks. She was dealing with her loneliness, which doesn't exactly forgive sleeping with Tom, but that's the perspective that she brought to it. She added more complications to her life when some stuff outside in the world kind of loomed over Tom and Mary. There were a couple of rerun season episodes that talk about a really powerful event in May Olinsky's life that tied her together with Mary in a friendship. May Olinsky, though, returns in season 2 as the Fernwood Skyrider, and she has an arc there that I feel is really amusing. It's really revolutionary in terms of the way that, we had already talked about Annie Wiley having a sexual point of view, but also May Olinsky having something powerful to say, a really important message, which isn't necessarily the message that we perceived at the end, but the message was really powerful, and that she was willing to risk everything to get this message across was really powerful to me. So May Olinsky is one of my heroes. So everyone, that is the end of T-4 weeks to the end of Mary Hartman. We're going to have 3 weeks to go after this. Thank you so much for watching with me. Thank you so much for leaving your thoughts, feelings, and impressions down in the comments. Thank you for sullying your bad reputation. And we will see you next week in Fernwood.